Tom Farley, how are you, good sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, it just hearing Wisconsin, just chilling out and hating all you guys in California.
It's getting a little chilly for us. I think it was like 56 this morning. I was freezing my ass off.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So Tom, of course, as we've let people know, you're brother to Chris Farley, and well, you got other siblings too, which I kind of want to get into the family order, which always interests me when I start to learn more about people and what the family was like. But let people know a little bit about what you're doing now, though. You're doing some motivational speaking, and you've got a book out there.
Yeah. No, God, what a journey I've had. But yeah, it's COVID really, got me doing two things that I really resisted my entire life. Got me exercising. So just because I had to get out of the house, so I just started going out for walks,
Sure.
Listening to a book on tape and just kind of chilling out because I had to. I was going nuts. So I realized it takes a pandemic to get the Farley to actually break a sweat. So I did that, and then I actually went out and I actually got a job. I'm like, okay, I got to do something. But I'm working for the United Way here in Wisconsin, just because it's community, it's nonprofit, it kind of really builds on my passions. So those are so I started to do those two things, and then because I thought, oh, my speaking business is just it's gone, but I really have spent so much more time. Not that it's for any, there are no events or anything like that, but I've just been doing a lot of podcasts, doing a lot of webinars, just getting the word out there just on recovery. Because, man, we're going to see just a tidal wave when this is over, because people have just been isolating, and I don't think we've even seen the tip of the iceberg yet. And so, in preparing for that, understanding that and preparing for it, I've just been, just kind of doing my own little kind of media blitz and just making sure that the people are having the conversations. So that's why I appreciate you guys, doing this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I agree, because if with my own recovery, that I've seen so many people that have fallen off, people that I know. I mean, even, Dax Shepard had come out and spoken about where he had relapsed. And this isolation shit is crazy, because, as we talk, and I'm sure, you more long-term in recovery than myself, but, using is the opposite of connectivity, and this going into isolation has made it even worse.
100%. We'll get into this, but yeah, honestly, tomorrow I've got 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
But it's interesting. I've had periods in my life, after Chris, I started doing the foundation work, where I was sober. I had little kids. I'm like, yeah, I don't want them to growing up like this. So I stopped drinking, and my threshold there is 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
Just white knuckling it. I'm like, I can do this on my own for about 4 or 5 years, and then I come back like a champ. There's something that, because I'm not doing the work.
Right.
And I did this 2 or 3 times in my life. I'm like, and then 2 years ago, I'm like, okay, I started thinking the same way again. All right, time to really kind of get back to this. But this time I'm like, but let's not go through this again. And I started, started doing the work and started going to meetings and wow, it just made all the difference. So, I mean, this last 2 years has just been truly amazing for me.
Yeah.
Because I did it differently. I did it the right way. And I don't think, if I didn't have a year under my belt before COVID, I don't know where I'd be, I needed a running start to get it, So,
that good momentum.
So with this motivational speaking, Tom, is there any light at the end of the tunnel, or have they talked about getting that back going, or is that still just kind of on hold due to the pandemic and all that?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I just, as I said, the event stopped, and then there was kind of like, well, now what do we do? So
Right.
I've just, and it really it was kind of refocused, myself and my kind of what I talk about. But for me, because of the COVID, because of the isolation, I didn't want to just go to like a community or like, let's say, a healthcare conference and talk to, preaching to the choir. What's really been interesting about this is I've had opportunities to speak to the general public openly and honestly about my story and Chris's story. And that just feels so much better. I don't know if I'll, ever, have, maybe it'll translate into, more opportunities later on. But in the meantime, it wasn't really about, a business or a plan or anything. It was just, it felt right to get out and talk and give and provide, show hope, some hope and light for others, and that's, that's part of my recovery too, so that's what I need to do.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of into the stigma and the shame and a lot of those things that us addicts carry, and when we can put that out there and let people know it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to see, to sit in a room and ask for help, and again, it's all about that connectivity. Well, I want to know what the Farley family was like growing up. That's something that definitely fascinates me. There's 3 boys and you have a sister, right?
Right now, yeah. Barbara Ann's the oldest, and then there were 4 of us.
Oh, okay.
It's really funny. For years, I have always described our growing up in our families like, oh, it was a real circus. That was an easy analogy. It's like, yeah, we're a circus. But then I'm like, just recently, literally, like, a couple weeks ago, I really kind of did a deeper dive into that analogy. It's like, oh my God, it really was a circus. I mean, all the players are there. And I looked and I just started like kind of putting everyone in their place. And like, so here's the Farley family. Here's the Farley. Here's what's going on under the big top is, Christopher was the elephant. And I don't mean that in, pun intended. Like, Christopher was he was the main attraction. He was the big, like, that's what everyone came to see. The elephant. What's he gonna do? Oh my God, he's balancing on a ball. He's up on his hind legs. He's up on his hind legs. That was Chris, and he was just in the center. And my 2 brothers, Kevin and Johnny, who are actors, also, and so they're the clowns that come out of the little tiny car and start throwing pies at each other. They were just there for the laughs, and they're really great and funny. But they energize the crowd. I because I was the only one that studied and liked to dress. I was the one in the middle. I was the ringmaster with the nice red tuxedo coat on and the big top hat in the middle of the ring, thinking that everything was evolving around him, that he was the center of attention, and it couldn't have been farther from the truth. like this guy thinks he's like the guy. No, it was totally, took me years to realize that I was just a bit player. And my sister Barb, she was the trooper. I mean, she was the one that would come out every night, smile on her face, dressed really nice, and she would get sawed in half. She was the one, and then the next night, saying, "There's Barb," smiling, and then like we saw her in half. She got sawed in half every time. But always bounced back with a big smile on her face. And my dad, he was the barker outside the tent. He loved just whipping us all into a frenzy and like, step right up, Gimp, come on in, see the bearded lady. He was constantly, talking the family up and just being this cheerleader and just getting, and then just making sure that we were all totally riled up. He totally like orchestrated all of that. And then, finally, there's my mother. She was up on the high trapeze, getting all the oohs and ahs, and everyone, oh, look at the beautiful lady on the top. And she was just up there going, what is going on down there? Just totally trying to stay away from it all, like good God, what is that? Like, just trying to stay above it all. But everyone, oh, there's Marianne. And she still shines that way. She's still the star, but she's not coming down. So that's the Farley family. And and it was just crazy. I was the one, I had to share a bedroom with Chris. So it was brutal,
So was it as funny to you as it wasn't as funny as to you as it was to us?
I literally spent my life just like telling all my friends to stop laughing at him. It's like, oh my God, did you see your brother do it? It's like, shut up. Just don't encourage him. Stop.
Don't encourage him.
Like, don't do that. He's not funny. And, because I felt his whole, reason to be on earth was to just annoy me. That was crazy.
I'm willing to bet my brother would say the same shit about me.
But the funny thing is because the fact that Chris was never acting his entire life, he was just being himself. So when he became, a celebrity and famous and doing everyone loved him, it was doing the same stuff that we did in our family. Some of the stuff that wasn't even his, it was my dad's, or some like holy shnikes. That was my dad's line. Really? My dad's line. And now we all grew up saying it, all of us. Like, holy shnikes. And now when I say it, it's like, oh, your brother said that. I'm like, no. I'm not copying anyone. My dad maybe. But yeah. But then like, oh man, he was just like we'd go to bed and he would not go to sleep. I think he was afraid of the dark. So he wanted to like talk all night. And it was literally, I used to call him Mr. Question, because I knew I had to like go through all these questions before I got to bed. And it was like, Tommy, remember that movie we just saw? I'm like, yeah, we just turned the TV off, dude. He goes, that was pretty scary. I'm like, yeah. And like, what would you rather be, like trapped in a room with Frankenstein or the Wolfman? I'm like, I don't know, Frankenstein, because I could run faster. So no, it's a real small room. I'm like, okay, the Wolfman, because then like he'd catch me and it'd be over with. Well, no, he'd bite you and you'd be a werewolf. I'm like, would you just shut up and let me go to bed? And then like 20 years later, he's doing the same thing with Paul McCartney. Like,
I swear, I was just telling him that. I said, you know what, we should mess with Tom. And then right when he comes on, we should be like, you remember when you played with the Beatles? You just do the whole Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah, and like he's not even like, that's not scripted. That's what I grew up with. Oh my God. Can I tell you a funny story about that?
Please do.
Oh my God, this was so bad. So this was after college. We're actually it was about 10 years after college. Chris was on SNL, and a buddy of mine was getting married. And I lived in New York, and so did Chris. And so we lived in New York, and a buddy of mine from college was getting married. So everyone came into the city for the bachelor party. And so we all meet that afternoon. The plan was, let's meet for lunch, do what we have to do, go home to our hotels or apartments, sleep lunch off, and then let's, have the nice dinner and do whatever. And so we were at that point, we were met for dinner, all like getting excited for the night, having, a bunch of beers. And, just when I had everyone else was, all right, we broke up and everyone's going to their, to sleep it off for the afternoon. And I go to two of my buddies and I'm like, let's go see Chris, which is always good after you've had a couple beers. Let's go up to SNL, screw with his, job. So we go up there and Chris, he's always so nice to, especially your friends and stuff. So yeah, hey, good to see you, man. Yeah, let me show you around. So he's showing us around, Studio 8H. This is Saturday afternoon. So the show's going on in hours. And maybe it was Friday. It could have been Friday. So anyway, we're walking by this like closed like room, and behind the door we hear this, "Hey Jude," like practicing on the piano. I'm like,
oh wow,
not moving till that door opens. I'm like, I'm staying right here. And like 5 minutes later, the door opens, and there he is. And I'm like, oh, yeah. But again, I've been drinking, and this is kind of, me thinking I'm funny. Thank you, alcohol, for
All right.
So Chris and Paul is my brother Tommy, and he looks at me. He looked dead on, and he goes, the serious one. I got me one of them too. I'm like, oh, okay, it's on. Gauntlet's been thrown. I'm like, hey, Paul, yeah, good to see you, man. Hey, just remember, this is like, man, this is SNL. This could really make your career. And he's like, okay, and my buddy goes, yeah, just it's TV, a little Grecian formula maybe, and you'd be all right. And Chris goes, that's all right. And I like literally dragged up on my ear, and it was like, what are you doing? Looking at me like, what are you doing? You're messing with a beetle. He just never let me forget that. It was just like, the funny thing is, like, later that night we had a nice steak dinner, and then there's always some goofball that says, oh, let's go to a strip club. I'm like, I'm not into that stuff, but I'm like, all right. So we go to this place in New York called Scores, which is kind of an upscale, and they've got TVs everywhere. And so I'm just like watching the New York Ranger game. Hockey was on. I'm like, I'm watching the Ranger game. All this stuff's going on around me. I just really didn't care. And this lady comes up to me, and she goes, my brother used to say it was the greatest line they've ever heard, because they all stopped and looked. This lady's like, you want to dance? And I was so annoyed. I just looked at her like, ma'am, I just spent the afternoon with Paul McCartney. You waving your chest in front of me is not going to make this day go any better for me. I think I said tits, but anyway.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, and walked away. And everyone looked like, Jesus, Farley. Like, I'm watching the Ranger game.
Oh shit!
I would have thought she would have been all over you more, like, ooh, this guy knows Paul McCartney. Yeah.
Well, probably not. She probably like, what an ass. And like, of course, you didn't spend the afternoon with Paul McCartney, but I did.
But I did. Little do you know.
And I insulted him.
It's a bummer that his career didn't really take off too much after Saturday Night Live.
There was so much hope.
Yeah. Had all the skills and all the talent, just didn't come to fruition.
What was really weird is we're walking. Chris is walking us very briskly to the elevator, and I had been up to 30 Rock so many times, but just as we go through the elevator, I walked through this like box kind of thing, and it that it just seemed out of place. It seemed weird, and I'm like, whoa, like what is that? And Chris goes, it's a metal detector. I was like, when did that get put in? It's like, Paul insists on it because, New York hasn't been very kind to Beatles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that kind of sobered me up. Like, yikes. Yeah.
But Tom, it sounds like you had a really, even though a circus, but very loving family. Was any sort of substance abuse present when you guys were kids? Because, I mean, it just sounds like your family was just this fun, wild, energetic, and loving group.
Yeah, it was. Back then, I described it as, it was Freud's workshop. There's no question. Well, first of all, and people ask me, like, one of the standard questions is like, when did you, see Chris as having an issue? It's like, we lived in Wisconsin. We live in Wisconsin. Right. That behavior is so normative out here that you don't notice somebody's got any sort of substance issue till it's dug in deep, because that's just what everyone does, and still is to this day. It's why I'm out doing what I do, because I love the state and I love the culture and the history, but we're gonna ruin it if we don't get this drinking culture under our belt. But that's what it was like, and and we were Irish, all the cliches. But we clung to those. It was a big part of our celebrations. Food and drink, and I think it's just the only emotion we had, the only bullet in our gun was humor. We dealt with it across the board in every situation, and if you do that, if that's what you're going to do. If you're sad, you're gonna make a joke. If you're, stressed out, you're gonna make a joke. If you're gonna, if you're, just a little bit happy, you're gonna make if that's your whole thing, then you are definitely going to, need to mask that kind of lifestyle with a substance, So we drank, and because that's, it wasn't a natural. We were connecting at a very kind of, surface level. We were close, and we were connected, and we loved each other's company, but it only went so deep.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
that's and we all knew it, and we all had a problem, and so I think that's, yeah, and there's other things as well, but that was a big one.
Yeah, no, I was really curious about that. I kind of figured that maybe it's odd. We had a gentleman on who was a Boston native, and you see it kind of systemic within communities. And
My mom's from Boston.
Oh,
yeah. So
yeah.
Well, I got it from both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird how it's systemic and kind of, like you said, ingrained within the culture of a community or a state, so to speak. I mean, it's like Wisconsin cheese and beer,
Well, that's why we have a big problem now with the recurring spikes in COVID, because our economy is held up by taverns and and that it was like it's like the pubs in Ireland. That's where every community's got, like, you go down small town Wisconsin, and there's your one post office, there's your one grocery store, then there's your 5 taverns. It's on Main Street. So when we started to open up the economy, that's what our economy is, and everyone just flooded back into the taverns, and now we're in the red zone again. We're
yeah.
So you are sober now, and did your brothers, aside from Chris, and your sister as well, did they all have their issues with substance as well, or was it not so much?
My sister was the worst. No, I'm kidding.
Being sawed in half her entire life.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
It's interesting. My mother was the first one to really identify this as a family problem. So she's been sober for 25 years, like before Chris. And she's been amazing. I took so much strength from just watching her over the years in this huge drinking family. She was the one, like, I'm doing this, and then one by one, even when Chris was alive, we all kind of like stopped, and then my 3 brothers and I mostly, we've come back and forth. We've done this what I've just described I did in my life, and now we are all sober at the same time, which just it just feels so good. Sure. My sister never really had a problem, and I talk about this a lot. It's interesting. We all grew up in the same culture, same DNA, but it's like if you took everyone on earth and fed them the exact same way and made them exercise the exact same way, you would still end up with has a different body.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that. And so that was our family. Like, we all kind of had the same kind of, dealt the same cards, but my sister Barbara Ann never had a problem. Me, Kevin, and Johnny, kind of struggled with it, and we knew that we shouldn't. And then Chris had an enormous, it was just, he had it, in spades. It was just so. Yeah,
well, and given his stardom too, I can imagine that his probably was worse because he was, in the SNL life and the movies and all that. So it was just being handed to him, I'm assuming, everywhere and anywhere he went.
Yeah, even in some of his stints in treatment, in rehab. Yeah.
Oh wow. Damn.
Yeah, nurses would smuggle stuff into him. Yeah.
No, really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
When you go to detox, and he'd like, Chris was like, he just had that personality, like, give me some drugs. Okay. I mean, sad, but yeah.
Well, and I would think, like you were talking about with your family and only handling it with humor, that any of us that use, we're trying to mask some stuff or escape some things and not really confront and deal with them. Chris being just so damn over the top and always on and always himself, that being any other mode, much like with substance abuse, we had spoken with Edward Furlong, was in Terminator 2, where he was talking about not being able to go out without having 3 tall screwdrivers, because he didn't really know who else he was otherwise, other than playing a character or the user.
Well, I talk about that too. This, now in recovery, I talk about this in meetings too. It's like, yeah, everyone's got that mask, and like, I got so tired. For 20 years, I've never been Tom Farley. I've been Tom Farley, Chris Farley's brother. I mean, it just goes hand in hand, and that's fine. I don't mind that, because I'm doing a lot of good, but I'm like, that's who I was. And that's why I think part of the reason why I really needed to deaden that feeling, because and I'm like Chris, I'm a pleaser, I love the crowds. I love the, adulation. I love the, but to play on their terms, to be that person that they want me to be, had a toll. And just like I did for Chris. And so now in recovery, for the first time, I get to really find out who that person is. I stopped being the person everyone else wants me to be, but now I got to find out, well, who am I? It's amazing that I've gotten to this part of my life, this stage of my life, not knowing that, but part of the beauty and fun of recovery is that discovery. Starts out as a mystery, and I'm a curious guy. So let's see where this takes me.
Yeah. Well, I can relate all too well, because I'm now 42, and it's like, I don't even know who the hell I am. What am I? I know I'm a father, and I know my 2 kids, single dad, but really trying to figure out shit that I want to do. It's like lately I've always wanted to try that. I'm going to do that.
The worst thing about it is, though, I'm so programmed and so triggered, wired up, that the shit that goes on in my head, still constantly, and like somebody will say something, and my brother Johnny is the same way. I think all my brothers the same way. What if people knew what was going on in my head? Before I didn't have filters, so I would just say those things, and sometimes they're really funny, and sometimes people are like, "God, what an ass." So now
we're an unedited podcast, so go ahead, say whatever you want.
You've just opened up a world of possibilities for me. So now it's like I'm applying those filters externally, but they're all still up there in my head.
Right.
So I'm just like constantly like, don't say it, don't do it, don't say it. Because that was always that kind of I was very, very, as they say, very codependent on that behavior, on that, being funny guy. So I'm trying to table that so I can really figure out, who I am,
Yeah. And it really is hard, because, part of how we self-identify oftentimes is by our interpersonal interactions and stuff like that. So when you make a lot of these big changes, and other people haven't changed, but then you're acting different around them, and they're like, well, what's wrong? It's like, shit's not wrong. I'm making personal changes.
Yeah, exactly. Left the red nose and floppy shoes at home today. Sorry.
Yeah. And it's that becoming okay with it and being confident in it, which is such a huge struggle. I have yet to meet any former addict that was just like, yep, once I stopped using, my confidence was through the roof. And it's like, no, it takes so long to kind of rebuild or build in general.
Well, it's just really, and it's really neat to when people see those glimpses of the person you're trying to show them, yeah, it's like, wow, they get me. That's awesome. I never got to feel that way before, because it was all just, bullshit. It was all like, the character I was playing.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, leaving the red nose and big shoes at home, I can't imagine just being a Farley, and everybody just expecting, oh, make me laugh, say something funny, you know what I mean?
All the time. You're a comedian. Like, I'm not. It's
like you're not always on. Sometimes I just want to chill, it doesn't need to be a joke all the time. Sometimes it can be, but sometimes I just want to enjoy my coffee and read the paper in peace.
Like going through life, and maybe it's a good thing, but like going through, like, that was always the shadow over me. It's like, I'm Chris Farley's brother, so I can't, like in an airport when everyone else gets to scream at the ticket lady that bumped them off the plane, I'm like going, hey, that's cool. Like, oh, Mr. Farley, yeah, that's great. Because if I, screamed or reacted like everyone else, people are like going, oh, you tell me that's Chris's brother? There's no way. He's a dick,
Yeah.
So I always had that kind of feeling that I had to, behave a certain way, otherwise people won't, it's like, it's just, I'm screwing up the brand.
Yeah. No, I can imagine that's what it'd be like. If Jason or myself were to scream at it, I would just be a, typical guy with neck tattoos acting like an asshole at the airport, but you're a Farley. You're not allowed to act like that.
Everyone's like, as we used to describe Chris, he was our wind-up toy. We just wind him up and send him into the bars when we were in college and just watch the fun ensue. Then when he passed away, it's like, I guess I'm the toy now. I'm like, all right.
5150 Apparel, lifestyle with a purpose.
So when Chris was more near at his end, how did the family come together, and how did you guys really cope after his passing?
Good question. I would say, again, right after, typical Irish, kind of wake kind of thing, we drank and joked around, that's kind of until we figured out, how we were going to kind of do this. And for me, I needed to, I needed there to be, some, legacy. I needed to, so I started really shortly after, like a year later, going into schools and talking to kids. I needed to do that. And, unfortunately, my two brothers, they were actually in the business. So they had to struggle with that, particularly Kevin, who looks a lot like Chris.
Yeah.
He had to, like, really kind of figure out what he could have easily gone down the, Chris Farley 2.0 road. And so he still struggles with that, trying to be his own, actor, comedian, whatever. Luckily I didn't have to do that. So my response was, getting in front of people. And what was interesting is being the only non-actor in the family, to go out on a stage and talk to groups. That was kind of like, all right, this is my opportunity to, I'm not going to be in front of a camera, but like I understood that whole audience and that need for affirmation, and I started thriving on it. And now I'm like, I talk about it all the time. I talk about how unnatural it is to get up and talk in front of people. I mean, no one, and but people are good at it. And what I tell people in my motivational speaking role is, you have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. For me to go up on stage, I'm still just as nervous and just as it's still, not comfortable for me, but I've gotten so comfortable with it. And in doing that, I've gotten really good at being in front of people. I still like, I gotta do another freaking speech, but I get up there and I feel like I'm, it's, and it's something that Chris, why he got into, acting it's that connection, the ability to connect with people. If you can do that, as a speaker, and it's funny. I used my brothers who all went through Second City and improv. That's my secret weapon, is this improv. I'm just going to do it, just unscripted. I remember sitting at a gala event. I was the keynote speaker, and I'm sitting with these people. I didn't know these people. I'm sitting at the dinner table, and I'm getting introduced. And this lady who I've been talking to all night, she goes, "Oh, you're the speaker." Oh, yeah, I'm going to speak in about 10 minutes, or in 2 minutes. She goes, "Well, what are you going to talk about?" And I go, "No idea. I have no idea." That's funny. Like, really, it's like, literally, there is nothing in my head right now. It's like, what are you going to, it's like, I'm just kind of taking in the audience, and I'm just going to, see what happens. And it's gold, man. It's I don't know. It's just a Farley gift. Who knows? But it's just just getting in front of people and performing is just,
You just got it in you. You just have it.
Well, was there any things that you guys had to do as kids as far as getting up in front of people? I mean, obviously, you 3 of your brothers pursued acting. You did not. But I always think Irish families, that the kids are involved at church or something like that, and they're up in front of folks.
We were all. My mom wanted us out of the house as much as possible, so we were thrown into every team, every activity, all that stuff. All mostly sports related. No one did any sort of acting, growing up, except for all the boys. We were all sent to summer camp all summer long, 7 weeks, all boys. My sister went to all girls up north at camp, and it was just being thrown in with all these kids from all different places, and we were always kind of like outside our comfort zone. That like we were never in like this group of, we're total comfort. We were always, we lived in one village, in a village out next to Madison, but we were sent to the Catholic schools like on the other side of town. So we were never with our neighborhood kids, or we spent all summer, up away from, our friends and neighbors. We would go up to camp and have to deal with brand new people every year. And so it was just that kind of like, and we were always changing schools. So
always changing schools because your folks changed them, or were you guys getting kicked out?
All the above, yeah, my sister literally was the only one that got all the way straight through. Dad was always kind of changing it up. I mean, yeah, I mean, like I flunked 4th grade, so I had to go to a different school. So yeah, I don't know, we were literally, all of us except for my sister had like at least 5 schools in K through 8.
Oh,
yeah, it was crazy. So we were always kind of like, chaining it up, and we always had to come into a new group, and we loved friendships. We loved, we weren't loners, so we had to find a way to immediately kind of be the center of attention. I don't know, just kind of be there.
Yeah.
So,
well, I can tell it's definitely worked, because like how you were saying beforehand, the bullet in your guys' gun was comedy. That's what it always was. And even just talking about your guys' childhood is having us dine. And there's a picture that I keep focusing on behind you. That's Chris, and he's got the crown on or whatever. And it just makes me, just smile, like, because it's just like, you guys you're so damn funny, all of you, like, we'll be talking about
that. I saw that on Instagram. This artist drew it. She's a band up in Oakland. It's a kind of like a little punk garage band called Shannon and the Clams, and she's an artist too. And I saw, and she posted. I'm like, that's the best. That's it. That's yeah. So I'm like, send me a print. I'm going to buy a print. And she sent me like 3 or 4. So I got a bunch. I'm like, it's the coolest thing.
I'm looking at that and just giggling. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you guys have it, man. You guys have it. It's awesome. It's comedy. There's nothing wrong with having that loaded up in your chamber. That works for everybody.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with, my dad was just such a great listener. He could go into, any group, and just like he just knew people, he just connected, and he
Right.
taught us that like you need to connect, you need to understand people, and that's the first thing we do is and to build other people up. Chris, man, he loved telling jokes and making people laugh, but when you said a joke, he would laugh 10 times harder, and just kind of like, even if it wasn't a joke, the fact that you tried to make Chris Farley laugh, or make, the fact that you just tried to create humor in the same way he was doing it, like, just, he loved that. Yeah. And he made you feel like a king. When he laughed at your joke, man, it was great. Although, like, again, growing up, I never did laugh. Well, his jokes were so, they were so well done that like you couldn't stay mad at him. There isn't like a teacher, parent, coach that just couldn't, like, he would disrupt things all the time, and the coach would get so mad, or the parent or the teacher, like, God, damn it, Farley. And then all of a sudden they realized like what he actually did, and they're like, oh man, like, really? Like, oh man. I remember like one time we were altar boys. So my dad managed to be altar boys, and we were up there, and of course the worst thing about being an altar boy for us with Farley is we have severe ADD. So like we'd be up there looking out into the audience, whatever it's called, and trying to find friends from high school and goof around, just kind of like lock eyes and goof around, but not paying attention to the mass. And I remember one Easter Sunday, there's like 5 priests on the altar, including the bishop. And we're up there and we're goofing around, and I totally lost track of the time. And there was one part in the Catholic Mass where I had to ring a bell back in the day. Mm-hmm. That was my job. I was the oldest. And so I'm just kind of looking around, and all of a sudden I hear next to me, Tommy. I'm like, oh crap. And I ran the bell and I start ringing it. And every priest like just stops, looks at me like, what the fuck? And it was like 5 minutes before I was supposed to. And all I hear next to me is like, just totally set me up, like, what a dick. And then I'm like so mad. And then all of a sudden I would tell that to my friends. I'm like, oh my God, that's the funniest thing. Like, you tell me you wouldn't do it. I'm like, yeah, okay. Shit, that was funny. God damn it. You couldn't stay mad at him because it was just because it was harmless, didn't harm anybody.
Sure.
But it was just, God, he knew how to just manipulate you, or just say something funny at the wrong time. And it was always just to like calm, at that point we were like, on the altar, we were, dressed up and something, we were stressed out, we had all these other emotions, and Chris just brought it all back to, let's just be funny. Okay, let's laugh.
Yeah, I still use some of those lines, man. We'll be in LA or on, business in Hollywood or something, and we'll see a Lamborghini drive by, and I'm like, oh, he must play for the Yankees, or just something like that. You know what I mean? It's just always used some way or the other in life.
Oh God, that's one of my father. I grew up. We sailed. We had a sailboat, and we would sail. And I was a sailing instructor at camp, and I was saying my dad's favorite line was, he would put us out in the, all right, go on your boat, guys, but quit playing with your dinghy. That was Dad's line. It was totally Dad's line. Quit playing with your dinghy, and they throws it into Tommy Boy, and it's like,
Yeah. I just pictured him on the boat by himself. Hey, Dad, if you can give me some wind, it'd be cool. If not, it's okay. Oh gosh! Funny. Just still making us laugh to this day. Still making us laugh. I love it.
Tom, what were when you first started to get out there speaking? What were some of the surprises you kind of encountered as far as people's response to what you were doing and sharing? And
it wasn't just response. Well, first of all, here's what I did. I started out going into like high schools and health classes, and I went out with this lady. I lived in Connecticut. And I went out with this lady whose son had died of a heroin overdose, and this was and so her method was to it was very emotional, a lot of tears, as a mother naturally would have. And the message was, don't do what my son did, make better choices, and was just that kind of thing. And I just kind of went, wow, that was really uncomfortable for me because, as I said, I'm Irish. I bury all of, I wasn't going to go there.
Right.
So I had to figure out something else. And I looked at my my brothers who were all improv trained, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go in and teach kids how to do improv, how to communicate better as a group, and how to create peer enhanced environments, not peer pressured environments. And it was great because substance abuse prevention is all taught in schools, which is great, but schools are information based, it's educational, and like that's great, but there's at some point you gotta stop doing that, or at the same time you got to give them a tool to use that information. And for me that was communication. So I learned improv. I took a class at Second City, and I went out and did that in this, with this messaging. And God, I remember going to the small school in central Wisconsin, about like 150 kids in the whole school. And I used to teach them these improv through these games. And so I said, all right, we're going to tell a story one word at a time. I did one volunteer, and we're going to tell a story one word at a time. We're going to be one person. And the great thing about, a good story has a conflict because it adds drama and everything, but you have to resolve it. So our conflict is we got an F on our report card, and we've got to tell our parents. So I go, give me a volunteer, and this kid's hand just shoots up. And I'm thinking, okay, the enthusiastic kid, I had to share a bedroom with one of those. All right, yeah, come on down. So I say, come on down. I see every teacher in the auditorium just kind of go, ooh. And I'm like, I got this, So I go, all right, here we go. We got to tell a story. We're telling our parents about our F on our report card. And I go, Mom. And he goes, Dad. I go, I have something to tell you. So we're going back and forth, one word at a time, and just kind of doing the yes and. He had to accept everything I said, and I had to do it back. And I started to, he would say a word that had a natural, follow-up word, but I wouldn't go there. I would say something completely different, and he would get frustrated. And then he started to do it to me, because I was teaching. You have to accept it, and then I had to do the same. So I would say a word, and he would say something different. I'm like, okay, you get it. And we resolved the problem that the F didn't stand for failure. The F stood for fantastic. Mm-hmm. And everyone claps and everything. And I go into the cafeteria afterwards and sat down with some of the teachers after the event. And I'm like, hey, man, what was the reaction of that kid? He was great. He was great. He was fine. And everyone clapped. It was great. And the teachers go, you don't understand. That's one of the most autistic kids we have in the school. And what you just did, his peers will never look at him the same again. And that self-esteem that you just allowed him to feel, he may never have that again, but I guarantee you they said he'll never forget it. And I went, wait, what did I do? I'm like, I just wasn't prepared for that. Wow. And she goes, you're going to leave the school now, but you've changed us. And that was the moment where I'm like, okay, this is bigger than I ever thought. Right. And so, it's those kind of things. I did the same thing down in Illinois once with an after-school program, and I did the exact same thing. I would give me a volunteer, and this girl in the front row, hand raised up. I could see that she had some sort of developmental, issue going on, and emotional stuff. And I said, "Come on up," and we did it. We did the same drill, same story even, and she started struggling, and we got through it. She was pausing, and she didn't, it was an uncomfortable place for her, but I was accepting everything. I was doing all I could to you got it. And at one point her aide, and she always had an aide with her, apparently, her aide started walking up to the stage, and I went, hold on, we got this. And the aide stopped. And as soon as I did that, this girl, who probably for the first time in her life was doing something without this assistance of somebody, and she just kind of delivered. She's like, okay, I gave her this, I don't know. It was just like, you mean I can do this without this aid? I'm like, yeah, because there's no deny, there's nothing wrong with what we're going to do. And it was just, and everyone saw that. They go, oh my God, I thought, you were definitely going to like try to get bailed out here. I'm like, no, this is improv, man. We're going to accept everything. And so, yeah, I just experienced those kind of things. And I knew, that's Chris, if anything like personified, Chris's kind of soul and the kind of person he was, it was those moments through me that I was kind of understanding Chris now, because I was experiencing these things as he would have. Right. And so, it really was, it wasn't really how I was transforming people. It was how I was being transformed at the same time, just as much as anything else. So it was.
It definitely sounds like it was very cathartic.
It totally was, and it's just, so just, kind of teaching people that improv stuff it's been really kind of neat, just.
That gave my son's on the spectrum. That gave me chills when you were talking about that. So that's awesome.
It's just, letting people, it's just like, imagine when you start accepting, accepting that yes and being heard and connecting, the what happens after that is amazing. And, and we're not used to seeing that. And when we see it, it's like, holy crap, that's what we've been like, avoiding, or not letting people, experience. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, incredibly powerful. So what was your process like for when you sat down to put together your book?
Oh yeah, that's a great story. Yeah, it's interesting. I was living in New York. It was right after Chris died, and it dawned on me, like, we're doing just what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Man, you were the funniest guy in the room just telling Chris Farley stories. Friends, people he worked with, to this day, remember when he did this? Or did you hear what he did last night? There was always, oh my God, unbelievable stuff. And I'm like, people, if they loved his body of work, they don't even know, like, just what came behind it. Chris on his own was, because he was always that guy. And I thought, what a great book to get these stories pulled together. And so I shopped it around to a bunch of publishers in New York, and they said, yeah, that's great, but we want the whole story. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
And I wasn't ready to do that. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And instead, I went out and did this foundation work and started going into schools. And about 10 years later, I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with Chris's story and telling it, in all facets, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because that I find there's relevance and meaning and message in all of those pieces. So I shopped around and found a guy that had just done the same kind of talking to friends and interviews, a book with Belushi, and he actually approached me and said, I've talked a lot with, the overlap is amazing. There's so many, of the same people at Second City and SNL and in Hollywood. So let's do the same thing with Chris. And his was more of a kind of a coffee table book, a lot of pictures and stuff. We actually did a lot more interviewing and dug a little deeper because I allowed it to go there. And I said to people that wanted to talk at that time, be honest. And some people weren't ready to talk. Like Sandler's not in my book because he just wasn't there. But he got there. If you've heard the song that he did, a couple years ago on SNL, man, he got there. It was there. He just, when I wrote the book, he just wasn't ready then. But and he did it in his own way with his, with his song, and it's just, I'm glad that's part of Chris's legacy now too, because it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, who are some of the folks that were included in your book that were willing to talk?
Well, we made Spade.
I was going to say David Spade had to be in there, right?
Yeah. Well, we made him. I think he said no at first. Like, shut up, David.
What do you mean no? Get over here.
So, Dave, just like a lot of what was really cool is like Al Franken was great. A lot of the perfect people that were in SNL, particularly, that saw Chris in, from the backside, from the, the writing or this, and those kind of stories were really neat. And then just like, as I said, every facet of his life, from growing up to camp, to some of our camp friends, and like Second City. I mean, he was there with Timmy Meadows was there from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Joel Murray, Bill's little brother, was there at the start. It just had great insights, and then the people in Hollywood, so what was really neat to me is all these different people from that intersected with Chris at different parts of his life, all kind of told the same story. It's like, yeah, that's Chris. They got it, And for me, if I wrote a book based on my experience of my story with Chris, it would have been completely different. Mm-hmm. And it would have been through my eyes. And I'm glad people got to see Chris through all these eyes. And that's the truer picture. And on the same token, as I like to say, I've got a better relationship with my brother now because of the book after he died than I ever did when he was alive. Because I get it, and whereas I thought all these years that he was just trying to annoy me. The funny thing is Chris was this guy known for all these characters, and yet he was just being himself.
Right. And I love that. I love hearing that.
I was this guy who had all these expectations, and I was trying to play this, caricature, this person. I worked on Wall Street, so I went to Georgetown, so I had to be this, locked up, serious business guy. And I think all these years, Chris was just like, Tommy, just be yourself, man. And it wasn't until I, got back to Wisconsin and my roots and my values, and Chris died, and I wrote this book, and it's like, shit, that's what he was doing all this time.
Yeah.
I still think he was trying to annoy me, but a deeper message was, just chill out. And it was, and he was right.
I am 5150.
I have the power to choose my own path.
When you're 5150, you choose to stand out.
If you choose to believe in yourself and trust your strength, will carry you through.
Choose to strive for greatness.
Choose to do good.
And help make the world a better place.
Choose to be passionate enough to chase your dreams.
I am 5150.
Yeah. If we could all just have that be in the moment kind of mentality, right?
Oh man, well, Chris was a little too much in the moment.
Yeah,
but
right.
Sometimes. But you're right. Though we're all wearing this mask,
Yeah, I'm most certainly guilty. How did your siblings and your mom take the book? Were they supportive?
Yeah, the whole family. Yeah, it took a while. I don't think they're dealing with that grief in a different way. Mine is to talk and be open about it, and all of it, because it's a healing process for me. Hopefully, I thought it'd be for everyone. But no, I think I had some uncles and stuff that just why did because I talked about my dad and his health issues and kind of the way he handled Chris for right or wrong, and they just didn't like that level of honesty, because that's again, we're a drinking family, and what comes with that, a lot of BS, right. a lot of bullshit, a lot of and long before I got into recovery, this was kind of the first kind of thing. It was my first experience with what I've come to really cling to, and what is a big part of my recovery is that rigorous honesty.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people family that just can't do that. They can't be there, and it's hard. They, some don't have the clarity that makes that happen, and some just don't want to go there. But that rigorous honesty, for the first time in my life, being able to walk that walk is liberating.
Mhm.
And I first felt that with the book, and that's why I never apologized for it, because that was part of my recovery as anything else was.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you've taken all of that, all this adversity, and not just your individual experience, but that as a family, and then losing a loved one near and dear to substance abuse, to go out and inspire folks, reach out to the youth, let them know that, hey, they don't have to continue to walk that path of what was before them.
Yeah. And you know what I love more than anything is that's all I'm doing is just telling that story and being open and honest about it. I'm not saying this is how you got to do it. This is what you should do. This is, these are the, I'm just like, hey, this is my story. And if more people need to do that, like, hey man, this is my story. And if you can get anything out of that, and I'm just trying to be as authentic and honest as I can be about myself, take what you can, but I think, man, we need more of it. We need,
Yeah, I know that was the intent that Carlos Vieira with the Knockin Doorz Down book of what his intent was. And all my coworkers know that me being dyslexic, I'm definitely not a writer or of high profile. So, he gave me, and then when Mike came on board, this opportunity to reach out and speak with folks and even share parts of our stories, just for that connectivity, let people know they're not alone. Sure, experiences are different, but you're not alone.
Yeah, nobody's here for your story, man. It's all me.
This is true.
Yeah, shut up, Jason.
Damn it, Jason. Tom, people want. Fuck. I got my balls busted by Farley over here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a great story. Okay, now back to me. Anyway.
Yeah. Shit. Are you happy, Mikey? Farley busting my balls here.
I love it. Tom, keep it going.
Your story probably has a lot more pictures than mine. But anyway, no, but you're to your point. To be honest, I mean, what you're doing is just, we need more of this. We need more of this, and I thank you for this, because it's so needed. And we're gonna see, like, more people went into COVID, kind of managing and being okay, but they're gonna come out with like just a lot of stuff, and I mean, so we're gonna have to deal with that, and I think this is one of the best ways to do that is to talk about it. So hopefully this encourages more people to do that. But
yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of parents that I talk to who are worried for their kids' sake, that it's going to affect their mental health because they're not around other kids. They're just locked in, we're independent, no school, no nothing, so they're just at home all the time.
Their activities. I know for me, it's the fact I had sports that I did with my friends was kind of the only thing that kept me going to high school, and trying to do decent. So so there's these kids and their future opportunities and stuff that, there is no acting going on. There is no sports. There is no whatever it is. There's no chess club. There's no, those things that we
what
have.
Was that?
I said chess club. You don't know what the chess club is?
I've heard stories.
I'm just trying to point out everybody's got their shit they're into. So if it's chess, then that's what gets you to school. Cool.
That's true. That is true. But the flip side, I always look for the flip side of everything. Actually, that's a lie. I don't. But what's cool, what I've really noticed, and again, personally, and I just think the opportunities that COVID has allowed us. I mean, I'm going to like meetings in Illinois. Sure. I'm like, because it's a different group of different people. I only know like 2 people, but it's a different conversation that I need to have that I don't have in my home group. And so the telehealth, all of a sudden it's legitimized. Insurance carriers are now paying for that. And so I was on a call. It was actually a suicide prevention group in Ohio that a friend of mine runs, and he was telling, like, in school, when somebody was having a mental health crisis and would run from the room, that teacher, couldn't do anything really about it because they had to stay in the room and manage, the other students. So that kid would run out and they didn't know. But now online, you know, they've got to check in. They know exactly where this person, they're checking in from home. This is where they are. So if they have a crisis, that teacher can immediately say, this is where the kid is. He needs help. Get there.
Right.
It's just those little things that I think are, and kind of managing both those things, addiction and mental health together. Yeah, there's good things happening too.
Yeah, there definitely is in this adverse situation a lot of opportunity to see what, you know, societally or even just as individuals of what needs are not being met and how can we do that and push forward.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, and just walking in that first time, you know, in AA, just you all remember like walking into the basement of a church and like all these strangers and like go, okay, welcome, share. I'm like, I'm freaking not sharing anything. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But online, you know, like I don't mind that. I'll get on. And I used to do the improv. I used to go to a teen group, and it was funny to me because these kids that like came from different high schools, and they even were in different grades. You had seniors with freshmen, and they were in this kind of group, and they were having tough time like getting these kids to be open and honest and share and stuff like that. So I knew the woman that ran this program, and I'm like, let me come in there and do improv with them. Just kind of open up, because improv, like recovery, is based on trust. You have to trust, and you have to be an ensemble. You got to come together, and like you can't just naturally just do that, especially if you're going to talk about, you know, a substance abuse issue that you have or mental health issue. So I would do this with this group, and all of a sudden I would build trust. I would build I would start building the ensemble, and then I would leave and like, now you can share. Now you can do your meeting and talk about your issues, because I've created that connection.
Yeah, that's great.
And
Tom, how can people find the book?
You know, I guess Amazon. You know, again, it was always one of those things that I didn't have to self-publish it. You know, I had a good publisher with Viking Press and Random House, so you can get it there. But you know, I just never had to worry about, you know, sales or anything like that. Like, yeah, they're in my basement. You know, here you go. Literally, and because of that, though, you know, I got all my books on Amazon, so I think I was the only one buying them for the longest time, because I would go to events and people were like, you know, are you going to bring some books? I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll just give them away, and but I was buying them. You know, so yeah, I guess Amazon. There's still some the paperbacks are still out there, and they're, you know, it's good. You know, it's really cool. Like about a couple years after it came out, maybe 5-6 years ago, BuzzFeed came out with a list of like 15 like must-read books for young teens in recovery, and that was one of them.
Oh, nice.
Oh, they did.
I'm like, wow. And I never thought of that. It's like, yeah, it's like Chris is really he's speaking to that group, and it's an honest, you know, here's his trajectory, and so I was really honored that they would name it that. You know, it was actually good for people, young kids in recovery.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, that is. Well, Mr. Farley, we would like to do some rapid questions before we wrap things up. So are you ready, good sir? Yes.
Yeah.
All right. What is something about you that people would be surprised to learn?
I'm actually smart. Like I study. I went to Georgetown. I mean, like, and people are like, "Oh, he's so funny." I'm like, that wasn't the card I was kind of, you know, hoping to deal first. I don't know. I would think, yeah, I'm just not some goofball. I mean, I don't know.
So you were saying you were in finance?
I was always kind of in marketing, but I was marketing in banks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot, and I did some sales, which I just hated, you know. I just hated, you know, selling something, you know. And it's funny, one of my brother Kevin's jokes is like, you know, because my dad was an entrepreneur and he was a salesman. It's like, well, you should be a salesman like your dad. It's like, my dad was not a salesman. He had an asphalt company, you know, road pay, you know, like, you don't have to sell asphalt. You either want it or you don't.
It kind of sells itself, right?
Yeah, it's like, it wasn't salesman. He took people out to dinner and, you know, lunch and just had a good time with them and like, you know, sign here. Yeah,
That's funny.
All right, Tom, what are some of your pet peeves?
I guess pet peeves is I just maybe right now it's just like kind of just dishonesty, just kind of bullshit. I my pet peeves are like just doing it. There's a lot of things I get frustrated with. Pet peeves.
They kind of have to happen for you to acknowledge them, like, oh, that, yep, and that. That's how it is for me typically. I'm like, I can't really think of any, but then life happens and I'm like, oh, I can't, that's one of my pet peeves. Something like that.
Well, it's funny. I moved back to Wisconsin from New York.
Uh-huh.
So like I was like a maniac on the streets. I was a New York driver in Wisconsin.
Sure.
It was tough. And so I was aggressive as hell. I was like, jockeying, constantly jockeying, stuff like that. And so part of my recovery is to just chill the fuck out. Literally put myself in the slow lane as a kind of like, now you're going to sit here and people are going to pass you and you're going to like it. But I don't like it.
You will like it.
Literally, like start speeding up. I'm like, take it down a notch. So it's that. It's just trying to maintain, my on the road when people are just driving like maniacs.
Yeah. If you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
I love that. I answer the same way every single time. Invisibility.
Why is that?
Invisibility, because it's just to hear what people are doing, or just to be unseen. Because I am so visible. I'm like, I walk in, everyone, oh, there's Tom Farley. I mean, it's just like, and the word spreads. It's not even. It's kind of like, it's just to be invisible and just kind of just be able to view life from that invisibility standpoint gives you kind of opportunities. But not being invisible, which some of us aren't. You always have to. You're always putting on a show, and I'm trying not to do that. So
right.
It's just to be just totally relaxed. No one can see me.
And get a different level of honesty out of people.
Totally. And not only that, but I can't exactly buy off the rack anymore. So, well, to be able to not just shed myself and just totally be free. I would be naked. I would be invisible but naked. Absolutely.
Oh shoot.
If you could have dinner with anybody in the whole world tonight or tomorrow night, no pandemic, who would it be?
Alive, obviously. Wow. That's a good question. Kind of stupid, easy answer. I would say probably President Obama, just because it's just one of those, like, let's just talk, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I just like, he's a cool cat,
A good conversationalist, cool guy.
Yeah, just hang, and he's just so cool when he's relaxed. You get those little snippets of it. And I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
And then, but talk about stuff at a very high level. I love the intelligence.
Yeah.
I love being intelligent people, but relaxed, intelligent people. And
sure,
he's that guy.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Absolutely.
Tom, good to meet you. Nice to meet you, good sir.
Yeah, we'll sit down and have a beer. It's like, club soda.
Club soda.
Club soda.
Hey, you're speaking my language. People go out. I thought you don't drink. It's just club soda with the lime. It tricks everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go up, tell the bartenders that are friends, club soda. Anybody tries to buy me a drink, just add it to your tip jar.
And I hate it when they give it to me in the plastic glass. It's like, God damn it! Put it in the pint.
Yeah, you son of a bitch.
It's the ones that say Pepsi on the side.
Right.
Club soda, sir. It's like, thanks.
Oh shit. Who do you think was your biggest inspiration or a mentor in life, or one inspiration or mentor that stands out for you?
I used to have all these answers down, and I just like I kind of forgot. Like you like have me talking about myself the entire time. Then, an inspiration. God, I want to say Chris, but that would just like make him, like happy. I do learn. I do get a lot from him, but I don't know. I just, I guess, probably my I would say probably my grandfather on my mother's side, because he's just had so many qualities. Joe Crosby, and Chris Crosby Farley. So Joe Crosby, my mom's dad, was this typical Boston, from Southie Boston, and he was this great athlete. He played football at Harvard, and he wasn't smart. He just played football. He got into play football, and but he had all these, and he was just, everyone loved him. And he was just like, and he just never said a bad word about anybody. And I don't know how you do that. That's, to me, is just superhuman, to be able to always be positive and saying nice. I've tried my whole life, and I'm trying so hard right now to be that person. But man, I could talk shit about it's so easy to go down that road. And so I just always looked at him like he was always just like whistling and happy and fun and funny. And Chris and I loved the man. He was, and all my brothers, he just was one of these guys that just was just so cool, so neat.
Right.
I love that. That.
So if they were to make a movie about you today, who would you want to play you, and why?
Wow. Who would I want me to play? Who let's see. Well, let's go down my fat actor kind of category. Let's see, Jonah Hill. I guess I would, I don't know. It's kind of not age appropriate anymore because he's older than me. But Bill Murray always had kind of that same the qualities I always liked. He was always kind of smart. He was smart, and he worked off people, and he always had this kind of smart ass remark, and that was me. I was always the that's why, David and I, from the start, David Spade and I, like, as soon as I met him, there was like kind of this like, kind of, testing moment, like, oh no, this is my straight guy. Chris is, Chris is my guy to make fun of, not yours. And because my whole life, I grew up with me playing the David Spade role with Chris. Yeah. He works so well with that, guy that thinks he knows everything, and, he's totally not in control at all. So, but Murray, it just he was just kind of he was just just that smart ass, funny guy.
He's one of the greats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, one more here. What do you think is your greatest achievement?
I don't think I've even come close to that yet. My greatest achievement. All right, honestly, wow, I'm going to have a lot to say tonight in my meeting.
So these two bastards interviewed me, and now it's got me thinking.
Yeah, I'm like, I need some. I need a little one-on-one. Greatest achievement. I guess I love my kids. I got 3 kids that are amazing. And but I don't call it an achievement because whatever they do themselves. I didn't do it. My son is actually leaving Chicago in a month to move to LA to follow his dream. He's the next Farley in the queue.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's done some Second City work, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to save up money to go to L.A." And one of his uncles and I kind of supported. It's like, why wait? It's COVID. Like, go, man.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Get out there and just do it. If nothing's happening in Chicago, what's the difference?
True.
Yeah.
So, my kids, and just watching them, I got one, daughter in New York that is just in fashion, she's just doing well stuff. And another daughter of mine that is hugely inspirational. She's moving to New York next week. Again, that's not my achievement, because I just love watching what they do, but it's, I guess I had something to do with it. I don't know.
Well, in your book, making the top 15 must-read books too, that's quite an achievement as well, right?
Yeah, but that's not really my achievement. It's just telling Chris's story. I mean, I love going out and what I've done with it. That's I love how I've kind of worked Chris's story into something positive. But again, that's I don't know. I guess it's Chris's story. Chris has done a lot of the heavy lifting there too. Sure. So I'm just kind of waiting for the next. I don't know. I'm still looking. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a good attitude to have, though.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. Tom, is there anything that you'd like to share with the listeners as far as any of those that are, just entering recovery or going through recovery, or maybe they're being tempted during this time, as well as possibly those that have lost a loved one to addiction?
I think, to me, just don't lose connection. Don't ever lose, connection to good people or anybody that you can, talk to and that's, as I said, it's a disease of isolation, and now we're in isolation. So it's double down. So you gotta, flip that around as often and as quickly as you can and find connection. And you know what? It's there for everyone. Sometimes you just don't, it's not so obvious, and you get frustrated because I'm not connecting with it, but it's there, and you got to keep looking, you got to find it, and you will, you'll feel it when there's that connection. And the more you look for that connection, the more I think you realize what a bad connection is. You realize kind of like, wow, you know what? These were my friends. I called these my friends. They're not, I gotta search for something like that works for me, not for them. And it's all of a sudden the balance starts to come back into your life, because you're off kilter. And so finding that connection is number one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Mikey?
No, I just wanted to thank you for your time, Tom. This was good. I appreciate you taking time to speak with us.
This was fun. You guys got good. It was a good vibe, good thing going. Hopefully, I'll get out there, visit my son sometime, and we can all be in person someday.
Yeah, get a cup of coffee, club soda with a lime, something like that. Absolutely.
Totally.
We would love that. And then hopefully once this stuff starts opening up, one of our goals is kind of along the lines of what you're doing is bringing folks to come in and share their stories with youth and groups and all kinds of stuff. So, fingers crossed, prayers that, we'll get on the other side of this COVID stuff, if not this year, by early next year, and we can come out and actually speak with people in person. So
that'd be cool. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Farley. Well, we thank you very much for your time.
Awesome. Good to see you guys. We'll see you soon.